My most wanted feature for Nintendo Switch's OS, other than a quick resume equivalent, which is just flat out impossible given hardware limitations, has changed quite a bit over the years. A long time ago, I made a video about things I want to see added to the Nintendo Switch OS. Since then, we got two, or 2.5, I'll say, entirely new consoles with new additions to their respective systems, and even more current than that, we just got a software update on Switch and 11.0 earlier this week. With that, there has been some neat stuff added that are indicative of a slightly newer direction for Switch, so I feel now is as good a time as any to update that list of things that I desire, and Parker desires, to be more in line with what would help elevate Switch OS in the near and far future. Let's talk about it.
To start with, there are a few features that have been talked about for a while now, and I'll just go ahead and get out of the way before AJ gets into the more inventive stuff. And while the Switch OS has improved in some areas over the years, these are the ones that I think going into 2021 are still worth talking about. Two that have to do with your friends list on Switch are messages and voice chat. I understand that a lot of these features may not be implemented because of privacy reasons or to please think of the children, but if we talk about messages first, I think there's a really easy way to circumvent this. If I see AJ online and playing a game, there's probably no more than 10 messages that I'd want to send him through the Switch itself. Some kind of greeting, some kind of see you later, some variety of, hey, you want to play this game with me? And let you pick from a growing list of multiplayer games that support invites. This way, no one's sending rude custom messages, but just picks from a list of the standard ones. Messages in general could obviously still become a nuisance, but it would be so easy to limit it to being only your best friends can message you, or turn off all except for a couple of people that you choose. Of course, we can just message through Twitter or Discord or something, but something about doing it through the Switch would just be more seamless, especially if it gets integrated into the games themselves. Similarly with voice chat, there are some games that support it natively, but not all of them. I think the clear solution here is that on top of the games that have specific kinds of functionality within supported games, just make a party chat function on the Switch itself. I can use the message feature to request to party chat with AJ, and then we could just chat while we play different games or multiplayer on the same game. This isn't something I'd personally end up using all that much, but it seems like a no-brainer for so many people nevertheless. The two features that I still especially want though are folders and an activity log. I posted on Twitter the other day about how I want to get some games on sale but don't want to add to my backlog, and one of our community members, Chad, shared his backlog spreadsheet, and this is the kind of thing that I just love. Every time I make a video, it goes into a completed videos folder so that everything always stays clear and organized, and that's the way I'd love for the Switch to be as well. In an ideal world, I'd have folders labeled something like in progress, not started, completed, multiplayer, and so on. This way also, if I'm at a friend's house and we want to play a multiplayer game, I can just point them to that folder and tell them to pick one, rather than them having to ask if Dark Souls has co-op or something. And the activity log idea is really similar. I just got my Spotify Wrapped for 2020, and it's so interesting seeing my media consumption from an analytical perspective. It wouldn't change how I play the games, but may shape just a bit how some are framed. I can currently see how many hours I've put into certain games, and Nintendo sends something like a Wrapped at the end of the year, but I know they have that data on their end, so it'd be awesome to have and keep track of. Oh, and also themes. I know folders and themes are contrary to Nintendo's snappy UI, but I'd happily choose an organized Switch with a theme that represents the game I'm currently into at the expense of 5 seconds of system loading for my own personal Switch experience.
Next up, this has been repeated ad nauseum, but I think adding achievements of some sort would be a pretty straightforward thing for them to do, and potentially if they put a Nintendo spin on them, they could be a lot cooler than the other platform solutions for this feature if done right. In the past, Nintendo has flirted with the idea of achievement systems, and each time they've offered things that are relatively more tangible than the other systems on the market. I think they can continue to do that if they just do what they did with Switch Online in 11.0 and bake My Nintendo into the OS as well. Think about it, they could, instead of having trophies like PlayStation, reward players with silver coins while playing through a game for most tasks and gold coins for 100% completing those games. That'd be an excellent incentive for most to play and beat games because it would literally help fund the purchases of the next thing they play. Nintendo's most recent update also moved the needle in terms of social features by making sharing images and video through a direct wireless connection to Switch or via USB-C to a computer, but it has more room for improvement because on Xbox, you can literally just share any game clip or picture you have saved to your Xbox Live account and download it directly to your smartphone just by tapping a notification. No QR code required. I'd like to see Nintendo move closer in that direction. Nintendo mentioned in the past longer gameplay clips also, so maybe we can increase the current limit from 30 seconds to a minute and then maybe include the option to capture 30-second clips at 1080p, or maybe still at 720p, but instead of 30 FPS, they do 60. Just some ideas. As far as next-gen features that Nintendo could incorporate on Switch that aren't hardware dependent, of course, I think it'd make a lot of sense for Nintendo to create a similar solution to what PS5 is doing for gaming guides. It'd be like the Nintendo Power Hotline made a comeback but baked into the Switch OS. I think having a tool like this would make a lot of sense for Nintendo given that aforementioned history with the Nintendo Power Hotline and given their commitment to making gaming more accessible for gamers of all ages and skill levels. If third-party developers are already creating these assets for their own games for PS5, it shouldn't be too hard to get them to do something similar for Switch, so I wouldn't imagine this being too hard for them to get rolling, even if it was exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. To continue on the topic of exclusive social features, I think Nintendo was actually ahead of the curve a few times in the past, whether people want to believe it or not. Miiverse and PictoChat before it were glimpses into the future that I think in a more modern form could be embraced by the gaming community at large. Honestly, I think using Miiverse posts as a tool to help with game discovery on the eShop, or just another tool for matchmaking in games, even as a way to potentially crowdsource the game guides feature. PictoChat Online could be a fun option for their messaging solution that they could even gamify with built-in Pictionary or something like that if they wanted. These two things in tandem could make finding games to play and experiencing them with others that much more enjoyable on Nintendo's platforms. A big part of Breath of the Wild for me, for example, was the communal sense that came from everyone sharing their experience with the game through social media. If those posts were linked with each player's Nintendo Switch profile and funneled into a new Miiverse equivalent, it'd do what the newly added trending tab tries to do, but better. You wouldn't have to worry about trying to get users to form new habits they don't want to. Miiverse could be populated with content that people are already posting elsewhere in addition to whatever people choose to share on Nintendo's platform itself. Also, although this is more of an eShop feature than it is a Switch OS feature, I want them to bring back the option to gift games to friends like you could all the way back in the Wii era. If I see a trending game that I think I'd enjoy with a friend, having the ability to buy it on the Switch eShop for that friend without going through a site on a separate device, or maybe grab my niece a game on Switch with a similar level of convenience, it's not exactly industry standard anymore, but it'd be cool of Nintendo to bring this back nonetheless. I think the best thing for Nintendo to add that, in all honesty, probably isn't entirely feasible would be an OS with some sort of modularity to its design. For so long, people have been pushing for themes, but I've been on board with Nintendo foregoing them for the sake of a sleek, snappy UI. Wii U was proof that a responsive UI is much more important than something with all of the extra fluff. But if Nintendo provided the option for themes that all stated in clear language what certain aspects of those designs would do to change the fluidity of the experience of navigating them, I could be convinced to embrace the addition of themes, or these extra menus with ancillary information, or the Netflix-like title screens for each game or app on screen that other consoles like PS5 parade in their solutions. If I can pick and choose what I want to have bog my system down or not, I'd feel a lot better about it being a feature. Also, I've seen a lot of people complain about the Switch Online app being placed in the Switch app dock, so it'd be good to see them implement the option to add or remove items on the Switch dock, or even just moving their placement. Now, there's plenty more that could and probably should be added here, but honestly, a lot of them are less OS specific features and rather Switch Online features or Switch eShop features. So maybe we'll revise our thoughts on those things with the added context of the next generation in future videos, but we shall see. For now though, those are all of the features we want to see added to Switch OS in the future. Did we miss anything that you want to see? Or maybe you have some cool new ideas that nobody has ever mentioned before. Let us know all of that and more in the comments down below, and we'll discuss them on our podcast this weekend directly to you. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider clicking the subscribe button and ringing the bell to be notified when new videos like it go up every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, that's it for me. See you on Saturday. Did I mention we upload a podcast? Those are on Saturday. Okay, goodbye.